For more than 100 years, cinema had a very clear gravitational center, a place where dreams were manufactured, stars were created, and stories crossed entire oceans. Hollywood. More than an industry, Hollywood became a universal language. Even people who never set foot in the United States learned English by watching movies. They learned values, conflicts, heroes, villains, love and loss in front of a screen. Entire generations built their understanding of the world through the narratives that came out of California's studios. From the earliest days of silent cinema, when Charlie Chaplin made the world laugh without saying a single word, to the digital era of seemingly impossible visual effects, Hollywood defined not only what cinema was, but what it meant to tell a story on the big screen. Hollywood created the star system, a sophisticated mechanism that turned ordinary actors into earthly deities. Marlene Dietrich, Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, James Dean. These names transcended the profession of acting. They became symbols, archetypes, dreams projected onto celluloid. It invented the modern blockbuster, a cinematic experience so grand it demanded to be seen in a theater, with popcorn and soda, in a dark room shared with strangers who, for 2 hours, lived the same emotion together. Jaws and Star Wars were not just movies. They were cultural events that brought entire cities to a standstill. It dominated visual storytelling with a grammar of its own. Orson Welles' long takes, Alfred Hitchcock's revolutionary editing, the noir lighting of Casablanca, the use of color in The Wizard of Oz. Every technical innovation served a narrative purpose, and Hollywood understood that better than anyone. Above all, it shaped the collective imagination of the planet. When we think of cowboys, we picture the American Old West. When we imagine the future, we see Blade Runner. When we dream of romance, we remember Casablanca or Titanic. Hollywood didn't just tell stories, it defined how stories should be told, from silent films to stereo sound, from black and white to Technicolor, from John Ford's classic westerns to urban film noir, from romantic comedies to war dramas, from the extravagant musicals of the Golden Age to the superhero films that dominate the contemporary era. No one did it bigger, no one did it faster, no one did it with such global and lasting impact. And that didn't happen by chance. The United States, at the right moment in history, combined three rare and powerful forces: abundant capital, investors willing to risk millions on creative projects, something rare in the post-war world; cutting-edge technology. From the earliest cameras to the revolutionary digital effects of Industrial Light and Magic, Hollywood was always at the technological forefront. Diverse narrative talent, European directors fleeing war, Jewish screenwriters from New York, actors from British theater, all converging in a single place. With this explosive combination, they created the greatest entertainment machine in human history, an industry that didn't just generate billions of dollars, but exported culture, values, and worldviews to every corner of the globe. The studios were true dream factories. MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, Universal, each with its own style, its own stars, its own signature. Competition among them raised quality standards and produced masterpieces that withstood the test of time. Hollywood also knew how to reinvent itself when necessary. When television threatened to kill cinema in the 1950s, the industry responded with larger screens, richer colors, and epic stories that only made sense in theaters. When multiplexes emerged in the 1980s, Hollywood adapted its distribution strategy. When DVD promised to revolutionize home viewing, the studios embraced the shift. But every powerful machine, no matter how efficient, faces an inevitable challenge: time. The world changes, audiences change, expectations evolve, stories must keep up. And when an industry becomes so large, so established, so comfortable with its winning formulas, It risks being left behind. In the 21st century, Hollywood remained a giant. Its films still earned billions. Its stars still dominated magazine covers. Its special effects still amazed audiences. But something began to change. Subtle at first, then increasingly obvious. Hollywood began to face something it had never truly faced before on such a scale: authentic international creative competition, not a military threat, like Nazi propaganda in the 1940s, not an economic crisis that could be fixed with investment, but something more subtle, and therefore more dangerous to the status quo. Someone on the other side of the world started telling stories as good as Hollywood's, stories that resonated with global audiences, stories that won awards, critics, and, most importantly, hearts. And most surprising of all, these stories were not copies. They didn't try to imitate the Hollywood formula. They had their own voice, their own identity, their own courage. While Hollywood invested more and more in proven franchises, safe sequels, and shared universes that guaranteed predictable financial returns, a small country in East Asia followed a radically different path. South Korea, a country that, just a few decades earlier, was emerging from a devastating war, military dictatorships, and economic crises. A country that, on the global cultural map, was practically invisible. A country whose cinema was largely unknown beyond its borders. But South Korea had something Hollywood was beginning to lose: creative hunger and a willingness to take risks. It didn't try to compete with American blockbusters on $200 million budgets. It didn't try to compete in coordinated global marketing. It didn't try to compete with internationally recognizable stars. South Korea competed exactly where Hollywood was becoming predictable: the screenplay. Korean cinema embraced elements that American studios increasingly avoided: morally complex characters, protagonists who were neither pure heroes nor absolute villains, but human beings full of contradictions, ambiguities, and flaws. Explicit social inequality. While Hollywood romanticized the American dream of upward mobility, Korean cinema exposed the brutality of class divisions. Without romanticism, without easy solutions. Nay, visceral emotional violence. Not just choreographed action, but violence that hurts, that leaves scars, that has real psychological consequences for the characters. Unpredictable and often devastating endings. No obligation to deliver a happy ending. No need to comfort the audience. No fear of leaving wounds open. Intentional discomfort. Long, silent scenes that force viewers to confront difficult emotions without the crutch of manipulative musical scores. It was a less safe, less polished cinema, less concerned with pleasing everyone. But it was infinitely more human, more honest, more courageous. Director Park Chan-wook released Oldboy in 2003, a revenge film so brutal and psychologically complex that it shocked international festivals. It wasn't just violent, it was philosophically disturbing, raising moral questions that had no easy answers. When Hollywood attempted a remake, the result was vastly inferior. Narrative audacity could not be transplanted. Bong Joon-ho, with Memories of Murder in 2003, showed that police thrillers could be quiet, contemplative, and frustrating. The film does not resolve its central mystery, because real life doesn't not always resolve its mysteries. It was cinema that respected the audience's intelligence, unafraid to leave questions unanswered. The Host, 2006, also by Bong Joon-ho, took the giant monster genre, long dominated by Hollywood and Japan, and transformed it into a devastating social critique of government incompetence and inequality. The monster was terrifying, but the true horror lay in institutions that failed to protect the most vulnerable. Train to Busan, 2016, reinvented the zombie film by setting it entirely inside a moving train, turning it into a claustrophobic allegory about selfishness, sacrifice, and humanity under extreme pressure. It was an action blockbuster with the heart of a social drama. Directors like Lee Chang-dong, Burning, Kim Ki-duk, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, Na Hong-jin, The Wailing, each with a unique voice, but all sharing a refusal to simplify the human condition. And then, in 2019, came Parasite. Parasite was not just a good film. It was a masterpiece of narrative construction, visual symbolism, social critique, and pure cinematic craft. It worked simultaneously as a thriller, a dark comedy, a social drama, and psychological horror, without ever losing focus. When Parasite won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2020, something truly historic happened. For the first time in the Academy's history, a non-English language film won the top prize. It wasn't a victory against Hollywood. It was a victory within Hollywood. The American system itself, the same Academy that for 92 years had rewarded only English-language films, publicly acknowledged a truth that global audiences already knew. Great stories have no nationality. Talent has no borders. Emotion needs no translation. South Korea proved something fundamental. Global audiences don't just want bigger explosions and more impressive visual effects. They want depth. They want reflection. They want critique. They want to see themselves on screen, even when the story unfolds on the other side of the world. And streaming dramatically accelerated this process. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, and other platforms gave Korean cinema instant global stages. Films that once required complex and expensive international distribution were suddenly one click away from anyone with an internet connection. Squid Game became the biggest hit in Netflix's history. Kingdom reinvented the historical zombie drama. Hellbound, All of Us Are Dead. My Name. Each new Korean release climbed to the top of global charts. Audiences responded massively, proving that subtitles were not a barrier, that well-told stories transcend language, culture, and borders. Part 3. The Present and the Future. Not replacement, but evolution. Today, the question is no longer, will Hollywood fall? The right question is, how is global cinema evolving? Because what we are witnessing is not the end of an era, but the transformation of a paradigm that dominated the 20th century. Hollywood remains the largest film industry in the world. No other country produces at the same scale, invests as much capital, or has comparable infrastructure. Neither the greatest global commercial reach. American blockbusters still dominate international box offices and define cinema seasons. The highest concentration of technology, from visual effects to sound systems, from IMAX cameras to motion capture technologies, Hollywood still leads technical innovation. The greatest historical commercial impact, decades of cultural dominance created a legacy that does not disappear overnight. South Korea, in turn, has become a global narrative benchmark. Screenwriters around the world study Korean film structures, their tension building, character development, and subversion of expectations. A creative model of boldness, living proof that it is possible to make commercially viable cinema without sacrificing complexity and depth. An inspiration to other national cinemas. If Korea could do it, why not Mexico? Why not Brazil? Why not Nigeria? Korea's success opened mental doors worldwide. One industry does not eliminate the other. They coexist, influence each other, and learn from each other. Hollywood delivers scale, spectacle, and instant reach. Korea delivers depth, narrative audacity, and raw humanity. And the audience, a global audience that grows increasingly sophisticated and demanding, benefits immensely from this diversity. Never before has cinema been so diverse. Never before has it been so accessible to so many people. Never before have stories from so many different countries reached such wide audiences simultaneously. A teenager in Lagos can watch a Korean thriller in the same week as an American blockbuster and an Iranian drama. A family in Sao Paulo has access to the same catalog as a family in Tokyo. The geographic barriers that limited cinema in the 20th century have simply disappeared. And Hollywood is responding, not with resistance, but with adaptation. Korean directors are being hired by American studios. Bong Joon-ho is developing projects in Hollywood. Park Chan-wook has worked with Amazon. Talent flows in both directions. Hollywood is investing in more diverse stories, international voices, and narratives that reflect a globalized world. Films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Americans of Asian descent, blend Eastern and Western sensibilities in innovative ways. The future of cinema does not belong exclusively to one country, one language, or one way of making films. The future belongs to those who deeply understand the human condition, to those who can capture universal emotions through specific stories, to those who have the courage to take risks, to surprise, to challenge audiences. In this new multipolar landscape, Hollywood does not lose relevance. It transforms, as it always has at crucial moments in its history, because those who taught the world how to tell stories on the big screen, who invented modern cinematic language, who created the visual vocabulary we all use, will always know how to learn new ways of doing it. Global cinema in the 21st century is not a zero-sum competition. It is a creative conversation between cultures, an exchange of influences, a mutual enrichment. And all of us, viewers from every corner of the world, are the true winners of this new golden age of cinema.